Well, a very good evening, everyone. Next Thursday, the 6th of May 2021, 28 million people from our nation are eligible to vote for 4,650 positions in power. Here in Frodsham, in the Waterside ward, we're electing a member of our Frodsham Town Council. In Cheshire, we're electing a police and crime commissioner. But the subject of our hustings here this evening is the vacancy on Cheshire West and Chester. Please welcome all of our candidates. For the Conservative Party, Chris Basie. The Green Party candidate is Sian Day. For the Liberal Democrats, Patrick Eakin. And for Labour, Mike Garvey. Please welcome all of our candidates. Well, so there we go, and welcome everyone to our hustings this evening. Just to say that Sian Day, our Green Party candidate, is not able to be with us this evening, but a very warm welcome to our other candidates. And here they are. Welcome to you all. And I'm grateful also to Emma Morgan of Frodsham Nub News, who's been acting as a kind of production assistant and researcher, and also taken an editorial role this afternoon. So she's doing the timekeeping this evening, but has been doing a lot behind the scenes. So welcome also to Emma. Thank you also to all of you who have sent questions in for our hustings tonight. We're not able to take them all, but we have done our very best to choose questions which are representative of the questions and the feelings from the town. We're going to begin in just a few moments with opening statements from our candidates. Then we'll be taking those questions from around the town, followed by some closing statements at the end. And you're free to and welcome to comment on the YouTube channel throughout the evening. So we're going to continue now with our opening statements, and we took a little sort of pull some names out of a hat just before we went on air, and it's Mike Garvey first of the Labour Party to give us his opening statement. Mike.
Okay, Andrew. If I can just start off by thanking both Chris. Specific instructions from Andrew, who is hosting this event, and it's really to start off by saying a little bit about ourselves and then what we're standing for, our main aims and objectives, and what our principal policies will be. So I'll kick that off and say I was born and raised in Liverpool. I'm the third of six children. My career was professional careers with Merseyside Police. I joined the police when I was in my sort of early 20s I was working in an office then. I was working for Liverpool City Council, and I wanted to do something which was both challenging and exciting. And I thought, what a better career than join the police, which is what I did. And it has given me a great deal of satisfaction over the years because it espouses my values and beliefs, which are fairness, equality, and affording the opportunity for everyone to reach their full potential. In the police, I was a career detective. I retired about 10 years ago, and I was invited to remain within the police family itself and continue to do investigations into serious and organised crime. Now about my family, I moved to Frodsham about 25 years ago, and I was here with my wife. We raised our children, all of whom still live in Frodsham. But when my wife and I separated, after initially renting a place in Frodsham, I found I couldn't afford to buy somewhere which was suitable for me with the two children when they came to stay. So I moved to Helsby, and I live in the new houses at the back of Tesco's. Frodsham, though, is what I see as my home. You know, I shop, I socialise there, I get my hair cut there, I have my eyes tested there, I get my teeth done there, and I value Frodsham greatly. And I also see the importance that Frodsham has to play within the surrounding villages and communities. My hopes and ambitions are to make Frodsham a better place as we emerge from COVID. It's quite clear that Frodsham is a unique and special town, and we need to have a unique and special programme and plan as we emerge slowly, safely and securely from the COVID pandemic that we've all experienced. So my aims and ambitions, the strands I want to see developed, they're in no particular order, and they're not limited to all the smaller things. But I want to make sure that we have adequate and more than adequate leisure, health and well-being facilities within Frodsham. That links into the next one, which is about making sure our environment is protected and we look towards climate change. Built into that is about making sure transport and connectivity is better. And by transport, I mean cycle routes, better bus routes and connectivity through broadband. This leads me on to the fourth of these 5 strands of mine, and it's about jobs in the economy and bringing work to Frodsham, revitalising our business as we emerge from the pandemic and making sure that we're successful and we have a vibrant and prosperous town centre. And then finally, the thing which is the focus of everyone's attention just at the moment, and it's antisocial behaviour. This is not limited to one area of Frodsham, which seems to be getting the publicity, but it's across the whole of Frodsham, and it's not just limited to the behaviours of young people. It's about speeding, cars driving too fast near to schools. It's about fly tipping. It's about all these things. It's about littering. And we know and have seen some great community initiatives coming through the pandemic and then dealing with the antisocial behaviour and the littering. So they're my main ideas as we move forward. And I don't want to go on too long because, I really want to get into the questions that everyone wants to see or to hear our answers to. So I'm going to leave it there, Andrew, if I may, and hope we've kept within the time.
Thank you very much for that opening statement. And just my apologies to Mike because I cut him off at the beginning. And Mike was extending a greeting to Sian and inviting us all to read her literature for the Green Party too. So thank you, Mike, for that opening statement. And next out of the hat is Chris Basie for the Conservative Party.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Same again, thank you, Mike and Patrick, and everyone who's joined tonight. It's a pity Sian can't be here. So, a bit about me. So I'm originally from Keighley in West Yorkshire, but I moved to Frodsham 20 years ago, just under 20 years in June it'll be. And we live on, myself and Sarah, my lovely wife, live on the Waterside estate. We've lived here happily ever since we've moved to Frodsham. My background is I worked for Sainsbury's for 34 years. Funnily enough, when Mike mentioned the police, my 2 options were Sainsbury's management or the police, which was also my wife's 2 options. And we both ended up going through Sainsbury's, which is how we met. So I started at Sainsbury's working on the tills, pushing trolleys, filling shelves, and basically worked my way up through the ranks to sort of senior management. And I worked in store management for 20 years, which I thoroughly enjoyed. My last 10 years at Sainsbury's, I sort of did a process coach role. So I was then out training people in stores, helping them do a better job serving our customers, which I've really enjoyed. And then 3 years ago, after 34 fantastic years, I took redundancy from Sainsbury's when we had one of our many restructures, and I set myself up as a business consultant. So my plan then, and it worked to be honest, I was then going to work with local businesses, Frodsham or certainly this area, and use the skills that I'd learned at Sainsbury's to help them improve their businesses, like I used to sort of improve Sainsbury's business. One of my main clients actually ended up being a local pub company that runs 7 pubs, one of which is actually in Frodsham. So that was like a double Brucey bonus for me. I was working with pubs, which my friends will know I like to frequent, and I was working with a pub in Frodsham. So I did that, and then COVID came along, and like so many people, it pretty much turned my life upside down. Almost overnight, I had no work at all. Found myself at a little bit of a loose end, and a friend of a friend knew someone who was setting up a local charity called Open Hands, which Andrew knows very well. So I was asked if I would help run that charity last summer, and I did pretty much sort of 7 days a week because I sort of had nothing else to do, and I really enjoyed that, and it gave me an introduction into being involved in the community and getting involved. One of the roles I did with that charity was actually I would do all the check calls to the people we'd done jobs for, so elderly, infirm, people who were shielding, and I ended up with loads of conversations with 80 people who lived in Frodsham for 60, 70, 80 years, and it was fascinating. Move forward a little bit. In October last year, I was asked if I would run the COVID testing centre that was going to be set up in Frodsham. Absolutely jumped at the chance. Who wouldn't want to run your COVID testing centre in your own hometown? Unfortunately, for various reasons, that never happened. So I've actually been running the Cheshire COVID testing centre for the last 6 months. And those 2 things, the sort of COVID testing centre and the COVID charity, have really given me a taste and driven me to want to get involved more in the community. It's made me realise how great it makes you feel when you do something positive. I've actually been asked to stand for Frodsham Town Council and Cheshire West quite a long time ago, a few times in the past. I wasn't quite ready for it then. I'm not really a politician. I didn't want to get into politics as such. But what I do want is I want to make a difference to the town that I live in. for my neighbours, my friends, everyone who lives in Frodsham, and obviously being a councillor representing Frodsham is going to be a pretty effective way of doing that. As I said, I'm not really a politician. However, my 34 years at Sainsbury's, what that did teach me, especially when I was doing the coaching role, is how to work with groups of people who all want to do something in a different way or to get different ends, and persuade them to work in one direction so we get things done and not everyone pulling
That's
off.
time, I'm afraid. So
No, that was just coming to the end. Thank you.
good.
Thank you very much, Chris. And now Patrick Eakin of the Liberal Democrats, please.
So hello, some of you may already have met me, but for those of you that haven't, I'm Patrick Eakin. So I'm standing as the candidate for the Liberal Democrats for council. Obviously, it's important before you vote that you know a little bit about who you're voting for, what they stand for, what they hope to achieve. I hope you've worked out by now that I'm not originally from Frodsham either. I'm obviously from Ireland. But I came over to England for university and I studied in Stoke-on-Trent, Keele University. And I've lived in Frodsham now for about 7 years. And I've been working locally in Runcorn as a GP for the last 2.5 years. Before that, I did quite a few of my junior doctor positions in hospitals and GP practices around Cheshire and Merseyside. Those of you that have met me outside of election campaigning will probably have seen me with my Labrador. I'm often wandering around the marshes, up to Castle Park, through Hogpay Woods. And I'm a big runner as well. I spend a lot of time out in runs around Frodsham and Helsby. And this sort of touches on some of the issues that are really most important to me. One of the reasons I want to put myself forward as a candidate for council is that I believe very strongly in protecting the environment, our green spaces, and protecting native wildlife. For me, addressing the climate emergency is one of the most pressing issues. So to that end, I actually sold my car last year, cycled to and from work, and on all my home visits, one community matron commented, "Very cold, the midwife." That's regardless of weather. It doesn't matter if it's raining or not, I'm out there. Obviously, I still use my wife's car when I need for runs to the tip, and I've certainly not cracked sustainably living, but I'm trying to do what I can. And as a councillor, I want to see Cheshire West taking the lead in protecting our environment, addressing climate change, and making it easy for residents to choose sustainable living and continue to enjoy the fantastic green space around us. And I also believe by doing that, we can make Frodsham an even better place to live. Some of the problems Frodsham has are intimately related to environmental matters. Air pollution, especially those of you who've lived around Fluin Lane at the bottom there, as I did once, and the traffic tailbacks in A56, they directly impact people's health, respiratory problems and heart disease, for example. And that ties into the second issue I feel really strongly about, which is making sure that Frodsham is a healthy place to live. As a doctor, every day I see the consequences of inactivity on health, and I feel the council is uniquely placed to address this. So ensuring proper investment in our leisure centre, making it safe for people to cycle and walk more, improve physical and mental well-being, these are high on my priority list. But being a councillor is not just about what I want, it's about the issues that affect any resident, be them big or small, and listening to what the problems people are having are, working together to make Frodsham the very best place to live that it can be, and having a strong voice to stand up and speak up for Frodsham at council. I hope that, which is why you consider me on Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you all three of you. We're going to move on to our questions now, and they come from around the community. And as I said, we've had to select them from the number that we've had. And we've tried our very best to represent the range of views. Our first question comes from Colin Burden.
So Colin asked, do the candidates have any suggestions as to how Frodsham could become a destination for day trippers? We now have 2 train lines with good links. Instead of seeing them as just outward bound, can we attract people to get off the train and use local businesses?
Thank you. And could we take Chris Spacey, please, on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I sort of plan on doing, so to make Frodsham a destination thing, I think one of the key things is going to be our shops. I mean, at the moment, we've got the Dev, we've got Cowards, we've got Whitmore, we've got some fantastic shops that people already talk about and travel into. As a Sainsbury's person for 34 years, I am quite business minded. And I, you know, if I get elected, my first job I'm literally going to go around every single shop in Frodsham and find out what it is that they want and need from either Frodsham Town Council or Cheshire West. But we need to make Frodsham a really vibrant place where we've got shops and facilities that people want to come to. So, I mean, the leisure centre's one issue, but for me, it's definitely more bespoke shops. It's what a small town should be. So we don't want lots of big brands. We want lots of local run shops, shopped at by local people and supported by Cheshire West Council.
Thank you, Chris. Mike Garvey, please.
Yeah, I think Chris is saying the right things there. I think it's very, very true. What can we do to make Frodsham a destination place? Well, we've got some wonderful attractions in Frodsham. We've got the Sandstone Trail for one. We've got the River Weaver, which we can improve and make facilities around there better. And yes, we can attract more independent shops and make it a really vibrant place to come to. We see it on a Thursday with the market, so we need to make the market, viable. And that can be achieved by working Cheshire West Council, working with Frodsham Town Council to make the High Street an attractive place. And that involves, the planters, simple things, making sure it's clean and tidy, making sure that we've got hanging baskets, we make it colourful and so on. Simple measures that make people want to come and see us. We can lay on events. We've got some great events that happen within Frodsham over the years. We've got the literary festival that happens every year, and we can do more things like that. Castle Park, what's a lovely amenity. We can do all of this, and we can make sure that people feel, as we emerge from the pandemic, that Frodsham is a safe place to be. And we can do that through making it clean and tidy and making sure there's no rubbish around and everywhere's kept spotlessly clean. And I think that's how we do it. Independent retailers highlight the good benefits that we've got around and the attractions we've got, and make people want to come and spend money in those shops, because that's what's important.
Thank you. Patrick Eakin, please.
Yeah, and I echo that. Frodsham has a number of assets that make it a desirable location to come to. So it's quite a historic town. We have a lot of very historical architecture and buildings, and that gives it quite a good niche as a town centre, a little market town. People want to come and visit, and we want people to spend time there so that they spend their money there. So we can bring people to our high street, and actually we want to give them the space to enjoy the high street, to enjoy the coffee shops, the restaurants. One of the things we can do is we can help businesses to maybe even set up some street-side dining. So, for example, could we use a couple of the car parking spaces on Main Street and set up little parklets for the restaurants, particularly some of the restaurants that haven't got much indoor space or can't use it at the moment because of COVID. Some outdoor dining would really help their business, and we can give them that space. Frodsham then also brilliantly located at the end of the Sandstone Trail, but we have access to the marshes, up the hill for woodland, and down the River Weaver there. There's no particular reason why we couldn't start to develop a bit of a green circular route around Frodsham. Something like that would really attract people. Families can take it, and people can come just to do it for the day and then spend a bit of time in Frodsham Town Centre. So those are the sort of things that I would like to support, and they don't require a lot of ongoing capital investment. They're sort of one-off investments that we could do, get it done right, and hopefully the rest will take care of itself.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from Lucy Sumner.
What feature do you support for Greengates Park in Waterside Ward?
Yeah, so Greengates obviously is situated on the Waterside Ward, which is probably one of the most densely populated parts of Frodsham. And actually, whilst it has saltworks as a play area and green space, there's not a huge amount of other spaces for children to use, or anybody to use, really. Now, Greengates is really closely located to saltworks, and it's also under Frodsham Town Council rather than Cheshire West and Chester. But this comes back to why actually Frodsham Town Council and Cheshire West and Chester Council need to work together to utilise the green spaces to the best of the ability and not duplicate work. I'm not in favour of building on green spaces if we have adequate land for housing. So I don't want to propose anybody builds houses there if there are other sites in Frodsham that are suitable. And actually, as we know, there's a covenant on the land that it should be used for the children of Frodsham, and a play area would seem to fit perfectly with that. one of the other things I would be really keen to see as well is actually Greengates is quite a large piece of land. And we can use that for some native wildlife. We build everywhere. We build and we build and we build. And we push nature further and further away. I think we should bring nature closer into us. So that's something I would like to see there, to be honest with you. And give people space to relax and enjoy themselves. That's what I see as the vision for Greengates, really.
Yeah, I'm going to echo very much what Patrick said, because he made a huge amount of sense. So we have got Saltworks just literally down the road, which is a fantastic space. Needs to be even better. It's got the great skate park there. For me, the Greengates, I mean, the feelings in the area about Greengates are absolutely red hot, and quite rightly so. It's just been left to fester for quite a long time. I want to see that as developed and used as almost like a real small children's park. It's really quite safe from the road. It's got the railings right away across the front of it. Where Saltworks, there's cars driving in and out. There's quite a big car park. So I want to keep Saltworks like it is. Kids, everything from 21 downwards use Saltworks. But I'd be looking to try and develop Greengates as a sort of mums and little toddlers. So you want a nice little play area. And again, as Patrick said, we've got at the very end of Ship Street, there's like a tiny little community garden with a few raised beds and things. I want to develop that as that sort of area, plant some apple trees, have it as a real little hub. There's so many families that live local to me, Waterside, Ship Street, so many families with loads of young kids. I think that place will get used day in, day out from dawn till dusk. So I'd be focusing on making it very small children friendly, but also something where, we've got raised beds in our back garden. My wife's very keen on growing stuff. You want it where kids can also feel quite close to nature. And again, like Patrick said, having a little wild garden or apple trees or something, I think that will be a fantastic space for this area.
Okay, well, I've got to declare an interest here from the outset, because I sit on the Greengates committee and have done so since we formed a couple of years ago. I think what both Chris and Patrick say makes a great deal of sense, and I'd like to take it a little bit further. Greengates was closed by Frodsham Town Council about a decade ago on the basis of a couple of residents, and it was no more than just a handful of residents saying they were concerned about antisocial behaviour there. So it was padlocked and closed and just became misused. Play equipment there was removed, some of it was sold for scrap, some of it was moved to other playgrounds within the Frodsham area. I think it's quite right. We've got Saltworks, that needs investment, that's undoubtedly so, and that should be for the older age range of young people. But Greengates is about young families. It is about parents and carers taking their young children there in a safe place to play. But it's more than that. It's somewhere where older folk can also go, because we can't forget that older folk also need to get out about in the fresh air as part of their health and well-being. And it's something that probably Patrick is well familiar with, social prescribing. So I'd like it to be not just for young people, the young children and the families. I'd like to see it for older people with nice, easy pathways and benches for people to walk on. And yes, Patrick's quite right. We need wildflowers there. We need a meadow. We need some trees. We need it to be a place for people who can go for solace and rest and contemplation, as well as the youngsters going on swings and slides and so on, and really having a fun time in a safe environment. And we need to make that part of a whole look and at leisure facilities across the whole of Frodsham. It can't be sold for housing. It came to light, and why we formed the Greengates community was when we heard that Frodsham Town Council were contemplating it, selling it to Weaver Vale Housing for housing development. No, enough houses down there. There are other places that we can look towards for housing. Greengates is an area that should be used for our community and left as a green open space.
Three of our candidates for their answers, and question 3 now is from Ashley McCrate.
So I suppose there's two parts to this question, but it's assuming each candidate would support the Town Council's fight to keep the Brewer Leisure Centre open, what other activities which require the support of Cheshire West and Chester officers would you like to see improved in the town, and why?
Thank you very much. And could we take, please, first of all on that one, Mike Carvey, please?
Okay, thanks for this. It's an excellent question from Ashley here, because there are all these rumours circulating about the leisure centre in Princeway closing. It's not going to close. There will be significant investment there, whether that be, the current building demolished and a brand new purpose-built sub-complex put up, or whether we just refurbish what we've got. But it's got to be done with significant investment, and that then should complement the area in which it sits. It sits right next to the health centre, and so it's got to be complementary. Within that leisure centre is also the library, and I think the library should become a social hub for within Frodsham. It should be a place where people go, a bit like when you used to go to some of the bookshops that were around, where you go in and have a coffee and a chat with friends. The library needs to be that. It needs to be a meeting place where people can go in. It shouldn't be a question of, shh, you're in the library. It's the library. It's a hub. People go and chat. They can pick a book off the shelves and read it and so on. Then to complement that, all the other activities, we should look beyond just the town council and look beyond Cheshire, West and Chester. We should look to some private enterprises and businesses. And I'm thinking of the rowing club which is at the far end of Frodsham, almost in Runcorn itself. And then we should look towards Helsby High School. And then the artery which connects both is the A56. And we should have all of the facilities. We can't have rowing and Princeway because there's no water there, but we can have rowing and sailing and swimming activities within the River Weaver. Similarly with running, there's not a huge amount of space there for having a running track within Princeway, but we've got Castle Park. Let's develop that into running facilities. We've got Saltworks for some sporting activities. We've got other facilities that are open to cricket, in the Frodsham Cricket Club and so on. The Red Line for bowling, so we can encourage everyone of every age, every ability and every impairment to be able to go out and enjoy some kind of leisure and sporting facilities, which helps both their physical fitness, but also their mental health capacities as well. So I see it's a very complementary thing, not just confined to the councils, but also to involve other people, third parties, the voluntary sector and businesses too.
Thank you very much. And could we take now, please, Patrick Egan, please?
Yeah, so obviously I would be very keen to support maintaining the leisure facilities in Frodsham as they are and adding to them. There are some sports facilities that need provision of special rooms or equipment, so squash. You cannot play squash really without a squash court and marking. So those sort of things need to be provided. But actually, yes, Frodsham has a lot of other assets that can be developed to provide leisure and sports facilities, the River Weaver being a particularly good one. And yes, that requires some investment away from the actual leisure centre itself. The other area I see that is really totally underutilised as a leisure facility is Saltworks. It has 4 football pitches there, and that's about it. But the amount of green space that space holds is totally unused. You could have either more pitches for other activities, but it also unlocks access to the marshes there. I mean, I would love to see a park run in Frodsham, and I think the council should support that by providing us with adequate tracks around Saltworks and onto the marshes to do that. And then that can be carried on as an ongoing voluntary thing by local residents. And it is about enabling residents to say, look, I want these facilities. Can you help get them started? And we take on from there. And that will reduce any ongoing costs to the council. The other thing I'm keen to see is that actually Frodsham Leisure Centre sits in the centre of town, but exercise and leisure doesn't just have to be about going to a leisure centre. Exercise and activity is about everything we do in our day-to-day lives. So I'd be very keen to make sure the council enables anyone to use active travel to get to and from anywhere they're going, and that includes to the leisure centre. To me, the idea of driving to do exercise seems daft. Run or walk, and that's not possible for everybody, of course. So that's why you still need some facilities, because actually some people don't have great mobility but plenty of upper length. So we want to cater for the needs of everybody, and we want to make exercise as accessible as we can.
Thank you so much. And finally, Chris Basie, please.
Okay, I'm very much going to echo what Patrick and Michael said. In fact, I'm actually still in my running gear, actually running this t-shirt from my run earlier on today. So yeah, I think where I'd start, a lot of my ideas are similar to the 2 other guys, but I think where I'd start is I'd ask Frodsham. I want to know what Frodsham wants and needs for those spaces, the exercise areas, I'd be engaging everyone I possibly could to find out what the people of Frodsham want. We absolutely do need the leisure centre. I used to play squash at the leisure centre, and I used to do kettlebell classes at the leisure centre. And as Patrick says, you need some specific things. You need the tennis courts at Castle Park. There's certain sporting activities that you need those facilities for. So I would be going into battle to make sure Frodsham gets its fair share of those fantastic facilities. I'd ask the people of Frodsham what they want. I actually think the park run idea, because I do Delamere Forest park run when I can get out of bed early on a Saturday morning. So I go up and do that park run. Having a park run in Frodsham is a fantastic idea. Why no one's ever thought of that before, I don't know. The Saltworks park that's near me, there's actually, I'm not sure if people do know or don't, there's a buried BMX track. If you look down in the far corner, there's all sort of humps and hills. I run around there quite a lot, actually. I'm probably going to bump into Patrick on my next run. But things like that BMX track would be fantastic because, someone's touched on already this sort of antisocial behaviour that we do sometimes get when kids are bored. You give them an amazing BMX track they can just go and wear themselves out on, that kind of thing improves people's health, which I'm as fanatical as Patrick about, because that's why I'm a trail runner, a member of Delamere Spartans, but it also gets rid of that excess energy and gives them something to do. We had some trouble on Saltworks the other night where some glass was broken. The kids were asked why, and they said they were bored. They need something to do. So we need Castle Park to be as good as it can be with all the facilities it needs. We need the 2 parks down near me. We need the leisure centre. We need to make Frodsham as healthy as possible. And it almost links back to one of those other questions we had. How do you make Frodsham a destination place? All these things work together to make Frodsham a destination place.
Thank you very much. I must say this is going really well. We're getting some fantastic answers from all of our candidates, and all I have to do is read out the names. And our next question then, please, from Ryan McEwen.
All candidates seem to agree on the provision of open spaces and leisure in the area. It's easy to say you support it. We all want more open spaces and less housing on our doorstep. But importantly, how do you fund outdoor provision that appeals to a wide range of age groups, but also doesn't impact our overall council tax bill too much and doesn't impact other services in the Frodsham area?
And we start on that one, please, with Chris, please.
Okay. So, I would say Frodsham, as it stands right now, has got a lot of outdoor spaces. So they're already there. So from a financing it point of view, I don't think we need to spend a huge amount. The leisure centre is a slightly separate issue, and we know that has been neglected over a few years and does need some investment. I'm absolutely a supporter of not putting the council tax up the maximum every single year, but making sure you spend people's council tax in the most effective and long-term way. So I think these things have got to be a combination of the council, yes, putting their hands in their pocket and funding stuff, but we've got a community that will come together if there's going to be a benefit to our community as good as any in the country. I mean, I think COVID generally has proven that people in Frodsham will pull together. We've got the Wombles going out, picking up litter. We've got a real good community spirit. And I actually think there's a lot we can do if Frodsham pulls and Cheshire West supports. We can get a lot of things done. I don't want to use the word cheaply, but cost effectively. So I don't think improving our green spaces is going to cost a huge amount of money. It just takes a bit of effort and a bit of coordination and everyone working in the same way. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. And now Patrick, please.
Yeah, so the advantage Frodsham has is we have our natural assets. And so let's use that. It comes back to what I say about actually exercise does not have to be done in a physical building. It's about the journeys people make, and every day we can work on our fitness and well-being in that respect. But you do want top class facilities for Frodsham, and the options the council have tend to be limited more if there's ongoing commitments for the council. So if we're going to do something using council funds and the council is going to need to keep on investing in that, then there probably has to be a way of generating some revenue, which is why, for example, when you go to the leisure centre, you have to pay to use the gym. So we need to look at that. But actually, the council can do quite a lot often by providing startup investment capital for something, for example, providing new facilities down at Saltworks to run on. And there's no real ongoing commitment or a very small maintenance there. Or the other option, of course, is to say you start something up and the community takes it on as an ongoing venture, and the council works to support community groups in whatever they want to provide. And that involves listening to what they want and then assisting them. And I think that's where the council is best used.
Thank you. And Mike Garvey, please.
Okay, thank you. Again, it's an excellent question from Ryan, and it's all about budgets and accounts, really, and the sourcing of money. No one likes to see bills put up, particularly at this time when people are struggling as a result of the pandemic and so on. But we have to be a bit realistic here, and that things do not come for nothing. Someone has to pick up the tab, no matter how big or small it is. I know that Cheshire West, like many other local authorities, right up and down the country, are struggling through the cuts that are being imposed upon them. You know, and they've got to balance the books, and so we've got to be very careful about what we can commit to and be realistic about it. And for me, when Ryan speaks about, you know, not impacting on the council tax bills, he makes a very valid point. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to press central government, from whichever, you know, political party we are, we've got to press them and say, listen, you need to release some more funds to us because we are struggling. We need to have some investment within our communities. And I think I've already touched upon it in some of my answers, and that we don't have to do this alone. It's not just a question of the responsibility to either Frodsham Town Council or Cheshire West Council. There's a responsibility where we can go to voluntary groups, and I think Patrick's touched upon this, and it's quite right. We have got those facilities there. There are grants available from other sources, so Sport England. You know, there's even the Marshes Community Benefit Fund for lesser amounts, but that we need to utilise that more. And then there's also when people come together and act in a voluntary capacity, we need to support and engage with them. But the reality is sometimes we do have to spend money. And if we're looking at Frodsham Leisure Centre on Princeway, that's going to be a significant investment. Within Cheshire West, there are budgets, there are accounts being set aside. And what we should all do here in Frodsham, regardless of the outcome of this election, what we should all do is we should bang a drum and beat a path to Cheshire West and Chester headquarters and say, give us our fair share of the money that you've got. We look at Winsford, we look at Northwich, we look at Ellesmere Port. They've had significant investment. It's about time that some of that money that Cheshire West is spending elsewhere is spent here in Frodsham. We deserve it. We deserve better. And we should push and push and push until we get it.
Thank you all very much. Our next question is from Michelle Parker.
What plans do you have to engage with the whole community of Frodsham and not just the community groups or the prominent figures? For example, how would you deal with one resident taking up a lot of your time?
Thank you for that question. And we're going first to Patrick Eakin, please.
Excellent question. So in my day job, I deal with patients on a regular basis, and every doctor has their heart-sink patients who come regularly to see them, and we can't fix them necessarily, but we can try and help. So I spend a lot of my time helping these people, but I also spend a lot of my time working out how to manage expectations, what we can and can't do for people, and making sure we set clear boundaries. Now, with regards to engaging with the whole of Frodsham, yeah, community groups tend to speak quite loudly because they have clear point of contacts and they know who to contact. I want to be somebody that is able to be contacted by residents quite easily. You know, I'm happy for people to email me, to contact me and let me know their problems, and I'll respond to them. And I want to be accessible. And also, what's important to me is feeding back to the community as well. So regularly making contact back with people. In the old days, that would be more with leaflets through the doors and things like that. Frodsham's quite big. I've learned this a lot already walking around. I knew it before, but I really know it now. But actually, with modern communication these days, Facebook in particular is, for all its ills, an excellent way of keeping in touch with people, letting you know what's happening and people letting you know what's happening. So I think there's plenty of ways for people to keep in touch with their counsellors these days. And it's important that counsellors let people know what they're doing. And that's how I think we need to be approaching people on an individual basis, so that if there is a little issue that's affecting somebody and having a big impact on their day-to-day life, they have an easy way of raising it. And then we can try and decide how best to deal with it.
Thank you. Mike Garvey, please.
Yeah, I think Patrick says an awful lot of sense there, and I think he's coming in from it, a professional capacity as a GP, as working in the police. I see that you get that same person who keeps coming in and making complaints and making allegations and so on and so on. Some of them have value, some of them have merit, a lot of them are just spurious. And I'm sure Chris has done the same in his career, working in a shop. You'll have the same person coming into the shop regularly, making the complaints about things and so on. So it's something we're probably all experienced in. But that doesn't mean to say that you have to turn that person away. You have to manage them properly. And you have to make sure that that one person looking for support in any way isn't at the detriment of everyone else who needs that support. Here in Frodsham, we have a wealth of community groups and panels and committees. And you hear Chris talking about his involvement with Open Hands. What a tremendous success that has been through the pandemic. They come together now. And today I got a newsletter from Cheshire West Integrated Care Partnership. They send me an email regularly, and I'm sure others get that one. And what they've set up recently is it's community group, and it's called the Care Community Steering Group. And they're trying to engage, and they've got a lot of people who sit on that. And my concern about it is, and I sit on a little group called Be Friends Frodsham, which was set up a couple of years ago now, but then during the pandemic, we're not lost direction, but we haven't been able to pursue it and push it as much as we can. But we are going to try and push that. It's about being able to, and I know a lot of people don't like this word, but it's about signposting people to where they need to be. It's about signposting to the likes of Open Hands who can provide advice and support. It's about using our shops, our businesses, to listen to people and be able to pass them on to somewhere that's needed. And that way we can listen to all, because I agree wholeheartedly with what Patrick's saying about, as a counsellor, we're always available, we're always open, we're always contactable. And it's probably the same with you, Andrew. In the church, you're always contactable, but you can't be there for everyone all of the time. And so you need to have, if you like, a system in place that is supporting everyone. And I can see that this is what we're going to do through this new Care Community Steering Group. That's how we'll achieve it in Frodsham. But we've always got to remember that the people who go there are the people who come to our attention. We can't forget those people of any age group, whether it be young or old, every ability, who do not come forward, who slip under the radar and who go unnoticed and end up being isolated, lonely. Ill health then kicks in, as I'm sure Patrick can vouch for on that. People's loneliness leads to medical conditions, and it also leads to some mental health issues. We need to stop that, and we've got to work together, and we've got to use these community groups, and we've got to be listening to people.
And Chris Basie, please.
Okay. Do you know, Mike, you nicked my... I wrote systems in place, and you've said that exact phrase. So I'm going to say a lot of what the guys have already said. So as Mike said, he was in the police. I worked for Sainsbury's for 34 years, 20 years, give or take, 24 years, was in stores. When I was running stores, we had 25,000 customers a week coming through our doors, and there would be a dozen to 20 who absolutely took up everyone's time. And to be honest, I probably shouldn't say this, I'm not at Sainsbury's anymore, people would avoid those customers. They'd just go, oh my God, Mr. So-and-so's in, I'm going to avoid them. I actually, when I worked in stores, I used to do the opposite. I would go and find those people, and I would talk to them, and I would understand what makes them tick. And if we sort of link it to the council thing, you will have people that will want to talk to you every single day for several hours. So you've got to find out what makes them tick. And this is the bit that Mike sort of pinched off me. You need the support systems in place to go, actually, I know someone, a great guy called Andrew Emerson, who can really help you with some of your issues. And you, as a counsellor, you will have a massive network of people that you can talk to. And running the Open Hands charity, we've found that. We've had people coming to us for things that are just way above and beyond what we can do or what we do. Takes up a huge amount of time. But the minute you start asking round, you can find big support networks. So that's the way you sort of manage those people. Now, from a communication and making sure you're not just listening to those who shout loudest, That's a really key thing. And for me, that's going to be getting out and talking to people in Frodsham day in, day out. I am a talker. You've got no idea how difficult it is, me keeping my answers as brief as I am. I'm a talker. I will be going out and talking to the people of Frodsham. And again, I've learned through working with the community in the last 12 months or so, there are certain people who really know what's going on. So you start to develop those relationships. There's a lady that just lives at the bottom of Waterside Drive, and you talk to her and she knows everything that's going on. She can talk to you about the families that might be having some issues, but they're not the kind of family that shouts up. And again, as a counsellor, you'll create those links with people, and they'll almost, I guess it's like being a policeman. You'll have people who would sort of tip you the wink and say, keep an eye on this area because there's stuff starting to happen you don't know about yet. So for me, is that network of support as a counsellor, so you don't allow just a small core of people to take up all your time, but you still deal with them in the right way. Because I could make it.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I think I do need to declare an interest here. I'm not very good at this, and I don't personally know any of the candidates, but Chris and I have worked together on Frodsham and District Open Hands. I'm the director of the holding company, but we've never met until the candidates came around. They came around to canvass, and I met Chris for the first time, and as he was asking people for their votes, and of course I replied and said I have absolutely no opinion whatsoever. Of course, I've tried to be scrupulous in wearing a black shirt. I have a white mug, and I've realised that I've got a great big green screen behind me, but that's entirely for special effects.
That is pretty much what you said, Andrew. I couldn't win you. There was no chance I could win you over. You were just Mr. Non-committal on that day.
I'm here just to test the arguments, but we're going very well, and no need to stop you. Let's continue and get back to the people who are important with the candidates. And our next question now from Lynn Riley, please.
Given that Frodsham has two councillors representing us at Cheshire West and Chester Council, how do you propose to work together for Team Frodsham?
And I think it might serve viewers to the stream to know that, of course, Councillor Lynn Riley is our other borough councillor from Frodsham. So we'll go first of all, please, to Mike Carby.
Yeah, I think what we've got to look at is who has the interests of Frodsham at heart, and and I think to coin an expression that I think Lynn has used frequently over the past in the council chamber, and that's fabulous Frodsham. And I think we have to work together as a team. And let's not forget that not only do we have, the Cheshire West Council to work together as a team, we've got the Frodsham Town Council to work together as a team, and that's a diverse range of political views and thoughts there. We have to work with them. We have to work with our MP, who at the moment is a Labour MP, who's working fantastically hard for us here in Frodsham, Mike Amesbury. And we've also got at the moment a Labour Police and Crime Commissioner. So the team that looks after Frodsham, is a variety, a mix of people, and we all have to work together. I know Lynn. I remember seeing Lynn for the first time when she was a mum up at one of the schools in the Frodsham area, collecting her children. And my children went to the same school just on the outside of Frodsham in Kingsley. And, she's then started off with Frodsham Town Council and has then gone to Cheshire West. It surprises me that she's not had further political ambitions, but that's up to Lynn. And I think we just work together. And what we work together on is the best interests of Frodsham. Frodsham, to me, is a place that deserves more than what we've got at the moment. It's a fabulous place here, but we just work together.
Thank you. And coming to Chris next, please.
Okay. As it happens, clearly, as I am the Conservative candidate, I've already been working with Lynn quite closely, getting to know her well while I've been campaigning. My views, my morals, my outlook on life, my passion for Frodsham are pretty much, we're like two jigsaw pieces. We are in line already. Her knowledge of Frodsham and her knowledge of council workings is absolutely unbelievable. I'll be sort of soaking up her knowledge like mad. I'll be using her as a sponge. But I'll also be complimenting her with the skills I've got. I said I'm a talker. I'm also great at listening to lots of different views and then pulling them together and working with a bunch of people. So I'll be working with Lynn on that. But I'll also be bringing, fresh new views. Lynn is a very experienced councillor, And I'm hoping I can come along and have some new ways of looking at things and new ways of doing things. And I know Lynn is very open to that. And the other thing for me, I know we are talking about Cheshire West today, but the reason some people are saying I'm crazy volunteering for both, but I'm standing for Frodsham Town Council and Cheshire West, because I also want to be a bridge between those two. I want to sort of be able to help Frodsham by being in Cheshire West, and also be more effective in Cheshire West by being in Frodsham Town Council. Whether I'll get voted onto both, I obviously don't know. But yeah, myself and Lynn are already planning. We are going to be working so close together. And as Mike said, we're going to be banging the drum. I do feel a little, as a Frodsham resident, so this isn't as a potential councillor, as a Frodsham resident, I feel like for the past 5, 6, 7 years, Frodsham's been looked on as though it's just full of people with lots of money. So we haven't had the investment that maybe we should have. Ellesmere's had more. There's lots of areas that have had more. And I think sometimes people outside Frodsham, because houses are quite expensive, think they've all got loads of money, they don't need investment. And me and Lynn will be a double act in Cheshire West, saying, again, like Mike's already said, we want our fair share of the money we've given in council tax, not all of it, but we want our fair share of that spent on Frodsham, which it definitely hasn't been recently.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Patrick, please.
Last but not least, yeah. So I mean, clearly Lynn is a Conservative councillor, and I would be a Liberal Democrat. But Liberal Democrats are very used to working with other parties, and particularly on councils up and down the country. And I think we do that quite well. And actually, in terms of what we're looking to achieve, we both would want the best for Frodsham. And to carry on with River Weaver analogies, things work better if we're rowing in the same direction. It's a lot easier. And also, as a councillor, you don't exist in splendid isolation. If you are shouting on your own in the corner, well, nobody's going to listen to you. You need to be good at building relationship with people. You need to get on with people. You might not agree on every single point, but actually, when you don't agree with somebody, those are the people actually you really do need to get on with. And actually, I know Lynn had a tweet out the other day about Cheshire West mowing the verges along near her house. And from an environmental point of view, I would be absolutely supporting her and saying, stop doing that, you know. And so when you agree on things, you can be really effective together. Even when you don't agree on things, you've still got to find a way to work together for the benefit of Frodsham. And that applies not just if Lynn was the councillor, but if we had any other candidate as a councillor. And so, yeah, you've got to be very, very good at building relationship with people. And that also includes, of course, not just the councillors on council, but the council officers. Things will happen if you get on well with people. If you rub everyone up the wrong way, nothing's going to happen. And I like to think that I can generally work with anybody and hopefully get on with most people. So yeah, I'd very much look forward to working with Lynn as well, because of course she does have a wealth of experience. And as a new councillor, that would be something that I'd be looking to use a bit of as well.
Thank you, Patrick. And just an apology to Lynn and to Michelle, because on the graphic that our candidates didn't see, but that graphic with the questions on, I credited Michelle with Lynn's question. So we got that wrong. That question was from Councillor Lynn Riley. We're going to move on now to Pauline Scott, please.
The council have mentioned the recycling centre at Frodsham and the possibility of moving it somewhere, with Chris and Patrick mentioning the car park site opposite Gleaves. My understanding is that this site is in the green belt, and it is very unlikely that planning permission would be granted for such a development. I would ask the candidates if they've done any further research into resiting the centre.
Okay, thanks to Pauline for that question. We're coming to Chris Basie first, please.
Well, funnily enough, yes, when I was doing a little bit more research, because I was just sort of chucking out ideas for where that recycling centre could be moved to, because where it is not ideal, although the opening hours are even less ideal. So that's the sort of first thing we need to fix. But yes, I've now found out that I've sort of found out Greenbelt is quite an interesting description, because it doesn't look very Greenbelt. But yes, I've now found out that land is Greenbelt. So I have actually been asking a few questions, and I haven't found a specific location, but what I've got is some more ideas that I would certainly investigate. So, for example, as you head down towards Gleaves and that area, on the corner of that road, there's a huge industrial estate with all sorts of warehouses and various businesses down there. And there's quite a lot of spare space. So, for our tip, we could potentially, we could even have it in one of those warehouses. The tip doesn't have to be in an open space. It could be in a huge warehouse that you drive through. We've got lots of huge amounts of space around Frodsham, some brown belt, some green belt. There's lots of areas, we've got fields that are not used for any sort of green space. We could maybe put it on there. There's so many options, but yes, my research, I did discover that what I thought was a fantastic idea, put it opposite Gleaves, was no good. And then, sort of as with one of the previous questions, I'm going to be asking the people of Frodsham, have they got ideas? Do they know pieces of land that could be used for the tip? It's one of those things that needs doing at some point. I think that's been a temporary site for about 25, 30 years or something like that. It just keeps getting extended. And I think we need to bite the bullet, find a really good site for a tip for Frodsham, invest a little bit in it, and it'll be there for a long time. But yes.
Thanks, Chris. Coming to Mike next, please.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. If I could, just before we move on, I think when I talk about lack of investment in Frodsham, I don't think, as Chris has said, it's been over the last 5, 6 or 7 years. I think it's been for a decade or more. I think we've never had proper investment here in Frodsham, and I think that's what we need to address. Dealing with Pauline's question, it is that thing. I mean, I was aware of the problems with the land opposite Gleaves, because when it was reviewed last time, before we entered into a fairly short-term contract to have the household waste tip in where it is in Frodsham, it was because there wasn't a suitable, viable alternative. And it is a challenge, because I'm not convinced that we want to have a tip on one of the main entrances to Frodsham. I don't think that sends out a good signal. And it's for that reason I don't think where it is now is very good. When visitors, and we've spoken about it earlier on, when visitors come to Frodsham and get off the train at Frodsham train station, the last thing we should be welcoming them with is a dump. We shouldn't be putting the council tip there. We need to make it warm and engaging and somewhere that you want to come to. But, listen to what Chris has said. He's quite right. We need to look and explore different alternatives. We've also got to make sure it's viable, because let's not forget that what comes with a tip is going to become heavy lorries taking away the rubbish. So it's got to be somewhere that the lorries can go to actually remove it and so on. And it's difficult because we've got environmental challenges. And the last thing we want to have are these big lorries rumbling through Frodsham. So we've got to find somewhere. I haven't got the answer. I've got to be quite honest about that. I've thought about it. I've looked at various sites. I think Chris's suggestion about the industrial unit by Gleaves, I think that's been looked at in the past, and I think there's some issues with that about underground pipework and so on, and the weight of lorries that may go there. But I haven't got an answer, and I've got to be quite honest. It's a problem. We need to address it. But right now, I haven't got an answer. So, Pauline, I am sorry. I can't give you that magical answer that you're looking for, that golden nugget of where the tip is going to be.
Thank you, Mike. And finally, Patrick, please.
To answer your question, Pauline, I wasn't aware it was greenbelt land. Like Chris says, it's a very funny shade of green. I mean, I know I am colourblind, but it doesn't really look green at all to me. The thing about the tip, as Mike touches on there, is that it is one of the things you see right in the centre of town. Whether you just get off the train, whether you're out shopping, it probably impacts on the value of the goods shed as well, in terms of what that could be used for, because it's right next to a tip, essentially. In life, there's no perfect location for things, because there will always be a problem with whatever location we choose. And the issues around building on greenbelt land are huge, because it's just a monumental legislation hurdle to overcome. And as somebody who is very much in favour of protecting green space, building on green land is not what I want to do, but equally you have to be a little bit pragmatic at times. That site around by Gleaves, the whole industrial area there, because it also, don't forget, extends onto the other side of the Weaver Viaduct, because you've got the power areas around there. And so there's a lot of land out there which is essentially just being used as derelict industrial ground, and it's odd that it's been classified as greenbelt. But yes, unfortunately, there isn't a perfect location for this tip. It's been a perpetual problem, and that's probably why the recycling centre has remained where it is. But we need to find a better way of managing this, and it's got to be continuously driving that agenda forward, whoever gets elected to council, because we don't want to lose the tip in Frodsham. It is really important that it's so well used. It needs to be open longer. It needs to be open more frequently. But we need to try and find a better location for it. And there is a solution if the will is there. But it just needs the constant nagging, perhaps the dulcet drag of an Irish Belfastman in someone's ear every day might change their mind on how often this could, how this can be solved. But it doesn't matter who takes it forward; it's got to be taken forward and pressed regularly.
Thank you very much. And Emma now has our final question, which is from Edward Flynn, please.
How have you campaigned for this by-election and what have you learned from it?
Thank you. And for that, we're going to go to Patrick first, please.
Yes. So it was how have you campaigned for it, wasn't it? And what have you learned from it? So this is the first time I've ever stood for election. I did help the Liberal Democrats with their general election campaign a couple of years ago, so I had a little bit of an idea of what I was getting myself in for. But I've learned that my shoes needed to be replaced, so I've had to buy a new pair of shoes. I've learned what 900 leaflets in one day feels like. But actually, what I've learned most of all is how great it is talking to everybody in Frodsham. And actually, we need to stop to say hello to people. They want to talk back. And I've enjoyed canvassing at the doors as well. And some of you may still see my ugly mug on your doorstep at some point in the coming days. But it's great to hear what people have to say and just listening to people. And actually, people in Frodsham are very friendly. And we've had a great reception on the door. I've learned a lot more about the actual nitty-gritty of the legal aspects of election. Of course, as Chris mentioned, he's standing for Waterside Ward for the Town Council, as am I. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Lucy Sumner is also standing as well in Waterside. But there are actually still 3 vacancies on the town council and only 1 will be filled. But that's the law and the law has spoken. So there are these little quirks that happen with elections. So it's been an interesting experience. I've certainly enjoyed it. It's been hard work. And as I say, my shoes have worn through. But my voice is holding out for a little bit longer. And there's still a few more days to sort of close the curtains and pretend you're not home.
Thanks, Patrick. And now to Chris Spacey, please.
Emma, just remind me of the wording of the question exactly, because I could go off a massive tangent here because I'm just being honest. Just do that question again.
It's how have you campaigned for this by-election and what have you learned from it?
Okay. So very similar to Patrick, as I sort of said earlier on, I've actually been out running and campaigning. I'm sort of combining I normally do trail running, so I've been combining my running and my campaigning. I've delivered just under 2,000 leaflets and just under 2,000 letters. There's been 4,000 of each delivered altogether, but I felt like I really ought to do the lion's share because it's for me. And also that got me out in Frodsham. So I've been running around. I've done about 40 miles, I think, over the last few weeks. I discovered actually there's 205 houses on the Waterside estate. And without getting to Ship Street, you can do 3.5 miles going to every single house. So how I've been campaigning is getting out there and talking to people. As I said, I'm a Yorkshireman and I'm a talker. I've loved talking to people. I've met so many interesting people. What have I learned? I've learned a lot about what the people of Frodsham actually want. So they are way happy to tell you what they actually want. I've learned what's important to the community. And to be honest, no matter which bit of Frodsham you go to, which area you're in and what people's political leanings are, what they want for Frodsham is all pretty damn similar. So that's been sort of one of the key things. And I know that most people, like I say, regardless of party, are actually very welcoming. So I've had some fairly staunch Labour supporters who are quite happy to chat to me. I've had a couple who just said, I literally had one today who just went like that when I told him what party I was. He said, bye, off you go. but that is the tiny minority. Most people are more than happy to talk to you. So yeah, I think I've been chased away by about 3 people, but I've learned a lot about what Frodsham wants. As with Patrick, I haven't finished yet. So I'm going to be out doing my jogging. I went out today in my shorts and t-shirt, and I was blooming freezing by the time I got home. I underestimated how much I was going to be standing talking to people on the doorstep. As Patrick will know, when you run in shorts and t-shirts and you're fine and you're warm, you talk to somebody for half an hour who wants to tell you about their views of Frodsham. Lady lived here for a few years, you end up quite cold. So yeah, I've been out, not treading leather, wearing my trainers out, and learning what people want.
Thank you so much. And Mike Garvey, please.
Oh, okay, well, unlike Chris and Patrick, this isn't the first time I've stood for election in Frodsham. I've done it twice before. And if it goes on to explain what I've learned about things during this campaign, I think I've actually learned that my personal traits of tenacity, doggedness and determination haven't gone away. And I'll keep at this all the time. In terms of how we've campaigned, it's been a strange campaign, because unlike other previous campaigns, we've suffered from restrictions because of COVID about how we started off. So I think we've all the parties have been doing a lot of phone calls to people, more than perhaps we would have done in the past. So we've spent our time on the phone, and I've been speaking to people on the phone. And then as the restrictions eased and we were able to go out and meet people and so on, we've gone back to delivering leaflets to start off with. And then as they eased a bit more, it's about door knocking. And I think both Patrick and Chris have touched upon it. There's no better thing than having a conversation on the doorstep. You learn so much about what people's values are, what they want. And as Chris has said, I think most people in Frodsham want the same thing, and that is to make Frodsham better. And I think we all think the same. And I think sometimes when you speak to people, what you have as a preconceived idea of what needs to be improved and what people are concerned about doesn't always necessarily transfer into what they talk about. And I think as a local councillor, sometimes what we have to do is look beyond the conversations and say, right, okay, I can see this needs doing as well. So I've heard what you said, I've listened, we've spoken, we've consulted, we've sought people's views, but this is what we need to do. And I think this has been it's a unique campaign for me as well, in that with it being a by-election, I've had a great deal of support from my colleagues within the Labour Party who've come from other parts of Cheshire West to help and support, and I'm sure Patrick and Chris have had the same. And so it's been a real team effort, this campaign, for me in the Labour Party, and that's how we need to go forward. And I think as we move it forward, we've got to have that team ethic beyond the political boundaries as well. We've all got to work together going forward to make sure that we do make Frodsham a much better place to live, to work, and to socialise in and visit.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the people from our town who have given questions. Sorry that we couldn't take them all. We are now going to move to closing statements, and we talked about how we would do this, and I've been trying to order the questions all differently. And as I say, we drew the names out of a hat, as it were, to set the order for the opening statements, and we're now going to go in the reverse order, which means we start, please, with Patrick.
Yeah, so very odd experience this evening, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, I have to say. And I'd like to thank Chris and Mike as well for taking part. Yeah, all I can see is the computer screen, so I have no idea who, if anybody, is watching or what your reaction's been, but hopefully some of you made it to the end. So in closing, I just want to reiterate that I'm looking to achieve a greener, healthier Frodsham. But I want to be guided by the residents of Frodsham. We all face very different personal circumstances, and what are issues to some, others may be completely oblivious of. And so I want you to tell me what those problems are so that I can see what I can do. I won't always have the answers or solutions immediately, but what I can assure you is that I'll listen to what you have to say, and I'll communicate back to you when I find out more information for you. It is a by-election. It's a chance for change in Frodsham, for something new, for something different. And that's what I'm hoping I offer when you vote on Thursday. And I hope that's why you might consider voting for me. And whatever happens, you could be confident I will be an advocate for all of Frodsham. And I'd be remiss as well of me just not to say a very quick thank you to Andrew and Emma for putting this together today, as well as anybody else who's been beavering away in the background that I don't know about, who's been working to make this happen. Thank you very much for giving up your Friday evening. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. And now to Chris, please. Thank
you, Andrew. So yes, first of all, thank you, Andrew and Emma, for organising this. I'm not entirely sure I am thanking you, because it's been one of the weirdest Friday nights and quite nerve-wracking. People who know me will know I'm normally a pretty damn confident, outgoing person, but I've definitely had a little bit of the nerves tonight. But yeah, my closing statement, I think I'm going to be very similar to Patrick and Mike again. I remember when I moved to Frodsham 20 years ago, and me and Sarah were driving around looking for the house that we ultimately bought. We saw, as you drove into Frodsham over the main bridge, and then just by the Chumley Arms of the railway bridge, and there's all these little plaques of best kept town, best small village, best large village. And we sort of said, how cool to live in a place that wins awards like that. Not because of the awards themselves, but because of what they say about that community. Now, COVID has demonstrated to me that we've still got that amazing community spirit. But if I do get voted in, I'll say thank you for whoever votes for me. But I'm going to be doing like a call to action. I want to really put Frodsham on the map. I want to make it the best in the north, the best parks. I want the best high street. I want the best roads. I want Frodsham to be a place where people are really proud to live. And I want Frodsham to be a place where people want to come to, even for just the day trip. So, I'm going to be about putting Frodsham on the map, and I'll be working same as the other guys again. I see my job as a councillor. Once I become councillor, if I do, my job is representing everyone in Frodsham. I'm not there to represent just who voted for me. I'm there to represent my neighbours, my friends, the people who are drinking the helter skelter with. I'm there to represent the whole of Frodsham, and that's what I'll actually be doing. And I'll be working with whoever has got the experience and the skills to make that happen, whether it be Cheshire West, Frodsham Town Council, or all the fantastic community groups we have. So yeah, and I'll just say again, thank you, Andrew, for making this more pain-free than I thought it was going to be. It's been okay, thanks.
I'm pleased you think that. And then Mike Garvey, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think going last in this kind of session, I feel all I need to say is ditto to both what Patrick and Chris have said. I mean, you can't say much more than that, but I will also add my thanks to you, Andrew, and to you, Emma, for sorting this out and holding it and chairing it in such a fantastic way. I'd like to say thank you to all the people, as I'm sure Patrick and Chris do, for submitting some really great questions. I don't think all of the questions were both challenging and thought-provoking for us, and I've learned, going away from this, I've learned some very interesting things about what people are thinking at the moment. And I think really, all I want to say more really is that when we look at what we've all said this evening, there's more that unites us than divides us. And I know that's very cliche, but I think we are all of the same mindset about what we need to do for Frodsham. So personally, I mean, I want to say to people, look, I will listen to what you have to say. I will inform you about what I do. I will represent you. I will do it openly. I'll do it with transparency, and I will do it with fairness. And it will give, hopefully everyone will have equality of opportunity. But finally, and the last thing I want to say is, this is a democratic process. And I just urge everyone in Frodsham, if you can vote, get out and vote, because I would like to see a really big turnout for this local election, which doesn't normally happen in local elections. I want to see a really big turnout for Frodsham, because it shows then that the people of Frodsham are listening, and we have to listen to what they want. And that's it, Andrew. And thank you, everyone, and thank Chris. And can I thank Patrick as well? I really enjoyed this. It is nerve-wracking. It is a strange situation. But I'd like to thank them, because I think we've done this really well between the three of us. And I'm so sorry that Sean couldn't be with us.
Thank you all for those remarks, and my very great thanks to Emma of Frodsham Nub News for helping us with this. If you've not found Frodsham Nub, I'm surprised if you haven't. Frodsham Nub News seems to be amazing at detecting stories in our town. So please use that website. And then just to say that if you've had some difficult reception on the doorstep, I would love to take you folks, everybody on this screen, and indeed Sean, out for a drink in one of our excellent outlets in our excellent hospitality sector in Frodsham, and that would be good to do when this is all over. Also to say, if you're watching this is now on YouTube forever. So if you would link to this, please, in your own social media feeds, that would be really, really helpful and get more people to see this. Thank you to those who have been on kind of live. And what else I want to say? Do the links. And well, of course, as the candidates have said, please get out and vote next week. Cheshire West and Chester is in no overall control. It's balance is very finely poised. This election matters. It matters because it's about our money, but more importantly, it's about our life together here in the town that we love. So my very great thanks to all of our candidates, to Emma, and to everybody else involved, to all those who sent questions. It has been good to be with you, and I wish you all a very good evening. Goodbye.